I stood in the middle of the kitchen, the cold tile beneath my feet feeling like ice against my skin. "Anna, did you even hear me?" Mrs. Thompson's voice was sharp, a knife slicing through the tense air. I turned, meeting her stern gaze. "I heard you, Mrs. Thompson. You want fish for dinner." "And not just any fish," she insisted, her eyes narrowing. "Get tuna, the fresh kind. Lily loves it." As if on cue, Lily, my 16-year-old stepdaughter, strutted into the kitchen, her phone glued to her ear. She barely acknowledged my presence, her eyes rolling dramatically. Fish again? I want a burger. Go get me one, Anna." The demands weren't new, but they stung each time. I was more a servant than a family member in this house. A deep breath steadied my voice. "But I'm already preparing dinner." Lily cut me off. "So I want a burger. Can't you do that one little thing for me?" Mrs. Thompson chimed in, her voice laced with feigned concern. "She's just a kid who wants a burger, Anna. It's not about being stingy." The word stingy hung in the air, a label I'd become too familiar with in this household. They had no idea about the financial tightrope we were walking on. My job in administration barely covered the essentials, and Michael's sporadic earnings as a struggling writer added little. "Fine, I'll get the burger," I muttered, feeling a familiar knot of frustration in my stomach. As I turned to leave, Lily's voice stopped me. "And I need $100. I spun around, disbelief written across my face. $100? For what? "There's this new game everyone has. I need it." I looked towards Mrs. Thompson, hoping for some semblance of reason. Instead, she nodded in agreement. "Poor thing. She needs to fit in with her friends. Give her the money, Anna." "But this month's budget is already stretched thin," I protested weakly. Mrs. Thompson's expression hardened. "Are you suggesting we're not entitled to Michael's royalties? What kind of stepmother are you?" "A stepmother trying to keep us afloat," I wanted to say. But the words never came. Instead, I reached for my purse, the weight of their expectations heavier than the coins and notes it contained. The evening air was crisp as I returned from the store, bags weighing down my arms. Inside them, a symbol of my surrender, a tuna and a burger. As I entered the house, the scent of disdain was more pungent than the food's aroma. "Finally," Lily scoffed, snatching the bag with the burger. "Took you long enough?" I set the tuna on the kitchen counter, meeting Mrs. Thompson's scrutinizing gaze. "Here's the fish, Mrs. Thompson." She inspected it with a frown. "It could be fresher. Next time, put in more effort, Anna." I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. Michael was in his study, probably lost in his world of make-believe literary fame. I longed for him to see the reality, our dwindling savings, the mounting bills, and his family's insatiable demands. Later that night I lay in bed, the moon casting shadows across the room. Michael's voice broke the silence. "Anna, you seem distant lately. Is everything okay?" I turned to face him, the moonlight revealing his oblivious expression. "It's just your family, and our finances. It's overwhelming." He brushed off my concerns with a wave of his hand. "Don't worry about money. Writers don't. It stifles creativity, and my family, well, they're just set in their ways." "But Michael, the reality is—" I started, but he interrupted. "Reality is subjective. In my world, my next novel will be a bestseller. You'll see." I wanted to scream, to shake him into seeing the truth. But I bit my tongue, a tear escaping down my cheek. I turned away, the unsaid words festering in my heart. The next morning, Lily's taunts and Mrs. Thompson's criticisms resumed. As I prepared breakfast, I overheard Lily talking to her friend on the phone. "She's so pathetic, pretending to be our mom. I wish Dad would just divorce her already." The words pierced through me like icy daggers. I wanted to confront her, to defend myself, but I remained silent, my hands trembling as I poured the coffee. At work, my colleague Jane noticed my forlorn expression. "Anna, you okay? You've seemed off lately." I sighed, the dam of my emotions ready to burst. "It's just home stuff. You know how it is." Jane leaned in, her voice a whisper. "If it's that bad, maybe it's time to think about yourself. You deserve happiness too, you know." Just her words echoed in my mind all day. Happiness, a distant dream smothered by the burden of illusions I was living under. The world outside was bathed in a soft, golden hue of the setting sun, but inside, the walls of the house felt like they were closing in on me. It had been another day of juggling insults and managing the impossible demands of my stepfamily. As I entered the living room, the sight that greeted me stopped me dead in my tracks. Half of the furniture was gone. The room, once cluttered with Mrs. Thompson's countless knickknacks and Lily's gadgets, was now eerily empty. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I reached for my phone, dialing Michael's number. It rang and rang, until finally his voice came through, distant and cold. "Anna, you noticed, huh?" "What's going on, Michael? Where is everything?" His laugh was hollow. "We've moved, Anna, to a high-rise condo. A fresh start, you know?" My heart pounded in my chest. A fresh start? Without me? "You can join us if you want, but you'll need to apologize first." "Apologize? For what? Keeping us from bankruptcy? For enduring their endless ridicule?" In the background, I could hear Lily's voice, laced with malice. "She finally realized she's not wanted. Good riddance." Mrs. Thompson's voice joined the chorus. "Michael deserves better. Someone who appreciates his talent." Their words were like venom, and with each syllable, the last threads of my attachment to this family frayed and snapped. "Michael," I said, my voice steady, "I won't be joining you. I hope you find what you're looking for in your new condo." There was a pause, and then a scoff. "How noble of you, Anna." The call ended, leaving me in a silence that was both suffocating and liberating. The next few days were a blur. I packed my belongings, each item a reminder of a life filled with false hopes and unreciprocated love. The divorce papers arrived soon after, with Michael's signature scrawled across them. As I signed them, a sense of freedom washed over me. This was the point of no return. I was leaving behind the life of a woman scorned, and stepping into a future where my worth wasn't tied to the whims of a family that never saw me as one of their own. I left the house for the last time, the divorce papers in my bag. The world outside seemed different now, brighter, full of possibilities. I was no longer Anna, the unwanted stepmother. I was just Anna, and that was enough. The first morning in my new apartment greeted me with a quiet that was both unfamiliar and comforting. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow on the sparse yet cozy space I now called home. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. Sitting at my small dining table, I sipped my coffee and reflected on the whirlwind of changes. I had left behind the toxic environment of my previous life, and, with it, the shadows that had clung to my spirit. Now it was just me, my thoughts, and the blank pages of a notebook that lay open in front of me. Writing had always been a secret passion of mine, a hidden outlet for my emotions. But in the chaos of my life with Michael and his family, it had been pushed aside, forgotten. Now the words flowed effortlessly, as if they had been waiting just beneath the surface, eager to be released. As days turned into weeks, I found solace in my newfound freedom and the routine I had established. My job in administration, once a source of stress, now felt manageable, even enjoyable. But it was in the evenings, when I returned to my writing, that I felt truly alive. I wrote about everything, my feelings, my experiences, and even fictional stories that mirrored the journey I had been on. Each word was a step away from my past and a step towards rediscovering who I was. It wasn't long before I decided to take a leap of faith. I submitted some of my work to various publications and writing contests. To my surprise and delight, the response was overwhelmingly positive. My stories resonated with readers, and I began to receive offers for freelance writing jobs. One evening, as I was finishing up a piece, my phone rang. It was Jane, my colleague. "Anna, you won't believe it. Your story won first place in the local writing competition. They loved it." I was speechless. This was more than just a win. It was validation of my talent and my journey. As weeks turned into months, my life settled into a pleasant rhythm. I was no longer just surviving. I was thriving. My relationship with Michael and his family became a distant memory, a chapter of my life that was closed and tucked away. But life has a way of bringing the past back, just when you think you've moved on. It was on a crisp autumn day that I received a call from Michael. His voice, once so familiar, now sounded like a distant echo from another life. "Anna, we need to talk." I hesitated for a moment, the old wounds still tender. But I was not the same woman he had left behind. I was stronger, more resilient. "All right, Michael, let's talk." The coffee shop was bustling with the late afternoon crowd, but the noise faded into the background as I saw Michael sitting at a corner table. He looked older, warier, a shadow of the man I once knew. "Anna, thank you for meeting me," he said, his voice tinged with a desperation I hadn't heard before. I sat down, keeping my expression neutral. What did you want to talk about, Michael? He hesitated, fidgeting with his coffee cup. It's about the condo and everything, really. We're in trouble, Anna. I listened, my heart void of the sympathy I once would have felt. Michael spoke of financial woes, the high-rise dream turning into a nightmare of debts and disillusionment. Lily and Mrs. Thompson, once so demanding, were now facing the harsh reality of their situation. I thought my writing would save us, but... Michael's voice trailed off, his eyes not meeting mine. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who had dismissed my concerns about money was now drowning in the very thing he had ignored. Michael, I'm sorry to hear that, but why tell me this? We're divorced. Your financial problems aren't mine anymore. He looked up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. I was hoping maybe you could help us, just until I get back on my feet. The request was absurd, almost laughable. Help you? After everything that's happened? Michael leaned in, his voice low. You were always good with money, Anna, and you've always been kind-hearted. Kind-hearted. The term felt like a slap. I had been kind-hearted, and it had been taken for granted, exploited. Michael, I've moved on. I have my own life now, my own expenses. I can't help you. His face fell, the reality of my words sinking in. I see. I just thought. What did you think, Michael? That I'd come running back to fix the mess you've created? He didn't respond, the silence between us growing heavier by the second. Finally, I stood up. I wish you the best, Michael. I truly do, but your life is no longer my concern. As I walked away, leaving Michael in the coffee shop, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was the final closure I needed. The last remnants of a life I no longer belonged to had been shed. The crisp autumn air was a refreshing contrast to the warmth of my apartment. As I sat at my desk, the glow of the computer screen illuminated the room. It had been a few months since my last encounter with Michael, and life had settled into a comforting rhythm of work and writing. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a call from Jane. Anna, you won't believe this. Your novel is being considered for a movie adaptation. I was stunned. My novel, born from the pain and turmoil of my past, had not only resonated with readers, but had also caught the attention of a film producer. It felt surreal, like a dream I was afraid to wake up from. Are you serious, Jane? That's incredible. Her excitement mirrored mine. I told you, Anna, you're a fantastic writer. This is just the beginning. As I ended the call, a profound sense of accomplishment washed over me. My journey, with all its hardships, had led me to this moment. In the weeks that followed, negotiations for the movie adaptation progressed rapidly. My novel, which detailed the struggles of a woman finding her strength amidst adversity, was going to be on the big screen. One evening, as I was reflecting on these developments, a news alert popped up on my phone. It was about Michael. Curiosity piqued. I clicked on the link. The article detailed Michael's latest misfortune. His attempts at writing had finally come to a futile end. Publishers had lost interest, citing his lack of originality and poor sales. To add to his woes, his high-rise dream had crumbled. Unable to keep up with the rent and mounting debts, he and his family had been forced to move out. I read the article with a mix of emotions. There was no joy in seeing someone's life unravel, but there was a sense of poetic justice. Michael and his family, who had once looked down on me, were now facing the consequences of their actions and choices. As I turned off my phone, I realized that this was the true essence of karma. It wasn't about revenge or seeing others suffer. It was about the natural balance of life where actions and choices inevitably shaped one's destiny. I turned back to my writing, the words flowing freely. My experiences had taught me that strength comes from within, and that resilience is born from adversity. And now I was sharing those lessons with the world. My past with Michael and his family was a closed chapter, but it had given me the greatest gift, the realization of my own potential and the courage to pursue my dreams. As the moon cast a gentle light through my window, I smiled to myself. Life was unpredictable, filled with ups and downs, but I was ready for whatever came next. I had found my voice, my purpose, and no one could take that away from me.